Dr. Horton for it.
Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
When I was asked to introduce Dr. K, I was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to say? I have had the opportunity to hear her speak and be in her presence, and I was trying to figure out what I needed to say. So I came across a inspirational poem, and it said, "Bless the woman who chases no one, needs no validation, and handles her business like a boss." I said, that's her. Dr. K. Renee Horton exemplifies this statement in her living and her doing on a daily basis. She serves as a NASA Space Launch System Quality Engineer at the Michoud Assembly Facility in New Orleans. Yes, she's a black girl rocket scientist. Dr. Horton is a Baton Rouge native. In 2016, she had the honor of being the second woman to hold the office of president of National Society of Black Physicists. Dr. K is a published author, international speaker, and founder of Unapologetically Being Inc., a nonprofit for advocacy and mentoring in STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math careers. She's a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated sorority and a proud mother of 3 children and glam mother of 2. Please help me welcome to the podium Dr. K. Renee Horton.
She Means Business. It is a true honor to be able to stand in front of women that are moving and shaking and changing our place. I asked and begged to come home to Louisiana because I wanted my impact to be over the great state of Louisiana. I am born and raised, and I believe purple and gold. And this is the place that I need to be able to make my change. At 9, I wanted to be an astronaut. My father gave me a telescope, and my parents offered me so many things when it came to STEM. I had a chemistry set. They were sending me to these enrichment courses on the weekends. I was convinced I was going to be a scientist in a white coat. When I got ready to graduate high school at 16, my father told me he didn't know any black scientists, so I should be an engineer. So that's what I went to pursue, engineering. He could give me a mentor in that, and I was okay with that too. I loved math, and I would be able to use that. At 17, I decided I wanted to go into the Air Force ROTC. I was going to become a pilot. And with becoming a pilot, that would lead me to be an astronaut. So they sent me over to Mississippi to go ahead and take my physical. I learned something that day. I learned my ears did not work the proper way, that I was hearing impaired. And I had gone through schooling not knowing. When I was young, I talked very loud and had vocal nodules, and they sent me to speech therapy. And they politely removed my southern accent. I was a tomboy anyway, it was okay. I didn't need to be a southern belle, right? But they removed my southern accent. They taught me how to recognize the vibration in my throat to maybe adjust if I was talking too loud or too soft. But it was that teacher who thought I was gifted, and that I didn't belong on one end of the bell spectrum, I belonged on the other. That was my first intervention in life. So she sent me to be tested, and lo and behold, I was gifted. And then they put me in these individual classes, and with that, you did your own work at your own pace. I sat at the front of the classroom, and I excelled. So at 17, when my hearing deficiency showed up, we were shocked. We had no idea. But what I do know is, that day, he marked a red X on my paper. I was rejected from the Air Force ROTC. And dealing with all the other rejections that I had gone through life, this was the biggest. See, I was the darkest of my father's kids, and he didn't know if I was his. And my aunts and uncles, oh, don't be sad. They love me now. would stick me outside as punishment. Y'all just stay out. I can't say punishment because my aunt was just a few years older than us. And she was watching 8 of us. Because my grandmother had 8 grandkids that were all stair-stepped. And our parents would drop us off in the morning. My aunt would be responsible for watching us that day. And her idea of watching us was get your tails in the yard. Not quite that person. She would say, go to the yard. And we would play in the yard. And so I discovered insects and butterflies and caterpillars, 4-leaf clovers. It was amazing for me. Not so much for the others. But I was excited. And when they punished me, they would send me to a room. But the room is where the books were. And so I still traveled everywhere else. And I absolutely adored the dictionary. I actually have a 3rd edition unabridged dictionary now. Because it was where I learned all the words that I could use that they didn't know what they meant. Isn't that something? But that day when that rejection happened, it was something for me. Because that was another milestone and a changing point in my life. Well, at the time I was dating this tall, dark, handsome football player who had these ripping muscles and stuff. What's going on? Anyway, I came back to tell him about my defeat. And he consoled me. And we got pregnant. During that conversation, right? So my father said, being from the South, my father said, you're pregnant, y'all gonna get married. So guess what? We got married. And he was in the military at the time, so I became a wife and a mother, and we really liked each other in a physical kind of way. And so while we were in Germany, we had another and another. We had nothing else, though, in common. We were not aligned. We were not standing on the same ground. We did not want the same things. It was not God ordained. And we divorced. Well, actually, I always wanted to be honest and transparent. We separated and was separate for 8 years, then we divorced. That happens quite a bit in Louisiana, so don't act like I'm the first one to know that, because I'm not. But we divorced. And during that time, I gave birth to my daughter. And they brought my daughter to me. And she looks like a living baby doll. She had a head full of curly hair. And unbeknownst to me, I didn't even know kids came out that dark. She came out real long. And I was like, who baby? And they said, it's your baby. I was like, the other 2 came out real white. So I was a little confused. But they brought her to me after a few hours. And she looked at me. Let me stop the story. Because if my mother was in the room, she would be saying, she don't care where I tell the story. She was high, y'all. Don't listen to the rest of the story. But she brought the baby to me, and when she looked at me, baby talking. She was only 3 days, 3 hours. She's still talking. No. They brought her to me, and she said to me, what are we going to do? I said, I just had a baby, so I'm a wreck. I know what you going to do. She said, no, really, what are we going to do? See, for me, right there in that moment, I realized that whatever had already happened in my life, I had done nothing. And I had those 2 boys. And I tell people all the time, those boys are my best friends. Because we could have been rolling along. And they didn't care what we were doing, as long as they was with Mom. See, and the thing is, they are my best friends today. I was growing up with the boys. I was 18 when I had the first, 20 when I had the second. So I was just no more than a child myself. So for the boys, they were my friends. But for my daughter, I knew then that I need to be a champion and change the world. See, I already knew what I had been going through to be black and gifted. And I knew that when she was born with her eyes open. And this is a very superstitious place, Louisiana. See, that means that she was born with a veil over her life. It meant that whatever was in store for her was going to be greatness. And it was my responsibility to open those doors for her. So me and them headed off back to college. We moved into the LSU student dorm. They were family dorms. And we moved into this teeny tiny apartment. And sometimes I'm amazed because the rooms I stand in could multiply my apartment that I was in by 10. 2 of my apartment. Straight down the middle is what I had for us as a family. I graduated 2 years later with an undergraduate in electrical engineering and a minor in math with no job. We decided to go to grad school. By that time, I had got myself a best friend, right? Because I was hearing impaired, they gave me a note taker during college, and he became my best friend. So we said we were going to grad school together because neither one of us had a job. So we went to grad school together. Well, what I learned in grad school was that my hearing disorder deals with those who speak English as a second language. Every professor in the electrical engineering department at LSU spoke English as a second language. The only thing I truly understood was when the professor said, "You are by far the dumbest student I have ever met." I said, I understood that, if nothing else. The problem is nothing he was saying was computing in my head. So it's true, if you ask a fish to climb a tree, he cannot, or she cannot climb a tree. So I left from there, and I went to Southern University, and I left from there and went on to the University of Alabama. Now this is where I'm going to start my own story. My degrees are divided. My house is not. I only support my house. But I go on to graduate with a material science degree. This is my PhD, with a concentration in physics, and I am the very first African American to receive this degree when I walk across the stage. And my sons were so excited because we had just become doctors. See, that was how I sold them into constantly supporting me. When I got my ring from LSU, on ring day, it has my full name, but the kid's initial. Because that degree was just as much theirs as it was mine. They sacrificed the same way that I did to support me to go through that. So when I walked across that stage to get the PhD, they took my certificate. And my certificate traveled for 2 years in other people's homes. The children, my parents, because they felt like they was all doctors. They were not. But needless to say, so making those accomplishments and moving through life like that, people always ask, what were my hurdles? My hurdle still to this day is that I'm a black woman. I frighten people when I walk into the room, sometimes just because of my authority. They have no idea what's on my mind or what I'm coming to bring. See, before Delgado called me, and you guys keep thanking me about being here, and I wanted to thank you for being obedient. Because see, God told me before they called me that I would be doing She Means Business today. And see, I needed to understand that there was somebody that was going to be here that needed what it is I had to say. My adversity that I have overcome is not simply because I wanted to. It was because that was the biggest purpose on my life. And if I had stopped when I got robbed and my thesis was stolen, I wouldn't be fulfilling my purpose. If I had stopped when I got arrested for a felony and taken to jail, I would not be fulfilling my destiny. If I had stopped when I was sexually assaulted and conceived my daughter, who changed my life, I would not be fulfilling my purpose. See, I turned my back on God. My grandmother died, and I could not understand that. She had cancer. We found out in November, and we lost her in February. And my grandmother was the most God-fearing woman I had ever met in my life. She never wore a pair of pants. She couldn't read anything but the Bible. She tithed faithfully every single Sunday. And if you stayed at her house on Sunday, you went to that little corner church for her that had 7 people in it. You went though. So when she was diagnosed with lung cancer and we lost her in February, I did not understand it. And I told God I no longer wanted to be affiliated with him. And I went on about my life. I went on about my life and had my daughter. When we moved to Alabama is when I took me and my family back to his home. And he opened his arms and welcomed us in. And I have been grateful ever since. See, he still held me through it all. Through every single thing that had happened. Car wrecks, robberies, you name it. Unemployment, it didn't happen. So one of the most beautiful things is, when I got this PhD and everybody became a doctor, ain't none of us have no job. And so I had to move back home with my mother. I had been homeless for about 30 days. And I said, let me go ahead and put my pride in my back pocket and go on back to my mama. Now, my mama is a piece of work, though. That's all I can actually say. But I moved back home to Baton Rouge with my mother, and they had a beautiful 2-story house. They gave us the upstairs, and I stayed downstairs. And my mother would get up every single morning and walk to the end of the stairs, and she would say, Doctor, did you find a job last night? And I would say, well, the first time I had said in my head, not out loud, you woman lost her damn mind. She didn't find a job at night, right? But I didn't say that out loud. I said, no ma'am, I did not find a job last night. And she would say to me every morning, well, I have a list of things for you to earn your keep. To earn my keep. Yes, ma'am. I'll go down. There will be things like, your daddy want white beans today. You're going to need to cook him a pot of white beans and some baked chicken. Yes, ma'am. You want to need to clean the bathrooms up, right? The ones that's the public bathrooms. So they would always have a list of things for me to do. And I would do them. The guy at Office Depot knew who I was and what I was doing, and that my former job on my resume was a student for NASA. But he gave me a job anyway. And I became the copy center girl. And I was excited about being the copy center girl. People would come in and talk to me and tell me their lives, and I knew what was happening in their life. I was helping with invitations for birth announcements and wedding announcements and all types of things. And they were excited, and I was excited, and it was the best job almost to date that I've had. The copy center girl. I'd go back today if they'd take me. That's right. Well, while I was there, I looked for other jobs and finally was able to get a job. We moved to Lafayette, and I wasn't there 90 days before they fired me. They said I wasn't a good fit for the company. See, most people don't talk about being fired or their families, but I want to let you know that those things will not diminish your fire. They become a kindling to what you have to do. So I was fired, and I never forget, it was the happiest day of my life, because I didn't like that company. But they had paid me $7,000 to relocate, and I kept saying, oh, if I quit, they're going to make me pay that money back. And then they brought me in before my 90 days, because I was asking way too many questions. I needed to understand why all the engineers were white, and I was the only black PhD that you had, but yet and still you decided when I started that you needed to put me on the floor and make me work with the workers. No one else had ever done that. So when I questioned why they wanted to do that, they said it was a new program. I thought the timing was a little fishy, but okay. You know, and then the guys on the floor would say, you need to be here for 6 o'clock, Doc. And I kept saying, that ain't even in my bloodline to be here. No, that's no 6 o'clock, y'all. They were like, no, we start at 6. You can't be rolling in at engineer time, right? We already halfway through the day. So it was already creating all kind of conflict. But I asked way too many questions, right? I kept saying, you know, this reminds me of the slave master type of mentality that you have. Everybody white up top and everybody black on the bottom. You telling them what to do and they just doing it. Needless to say, y'all, they went on and fired me. They did not ask for that money. I called my sister though, and I told her, girl, I just been fired. Now, mind you, I had my unemployed, right? They had to take care of my bills. She said, girl, please tell me you saved some money. She said, well, we just stopped paying your bills. I said, oh, I'm good. I'm good. See, the Lord had worked that out too. Because if they paid me $7,000, I hired my son, tried to go on movers. Remember them boys, big boys now, right? They're going to go ahead and move me. I only spent $1,000. We locked away $5,000 because we parted on $1,000. It was almost like income tax time. We parted a little bit, but you know, I bought it. past that really just went by, and I hadn't had a real job. You get lots of money back when you have a real job. So I put that in the bank too. So what I knew was I had 6 months to look for a job. So I was good. This time though, it was different. See, when I moved into my mother's house, I was functioning on my plan and my time. I did a 90-day transformation when I was at my mother's house. There were some things I needed to work on about me. See, I was homeless because somebody else had put me out, the guy I had been dating. And I had to stop for a moment and go back and try to figure out what was so bad about me, not him, about me. So I spent 90 days checking myself and my baggage and wanting to be a better person. So when I got fired, my mom said, you should say laid off. No, I was not laid off. I was fired, right? They brought you in. Well, I was terminated during the probationary period. She liked that better too. So when I was terminated during that probationary period, I was in Lafayette in my own place, and I spent the rest of that time healing my daughter. See, she had been hurt that I had been moving her. This was her 3rd middle school in 8th grade. I know, sounds terrible, don't it? She all right. It was her 3rd middle school in 8th grade, and I had missed so much. Other people had been to track meets. Other people had been to cheerleading competition. Other people had been to dance. There was a lot of other happening. And it was my moment, if nothing else, but to be a mother. So I mothered my daughter for 6 weeks. You see, after 6 weeks of being laid off, Nancy called. And she called with a little attitude too. So you don't be calling me with no little attitude now, I guess I am. But she called me and she said, Carla Horton, have you graduated? I said, well, yes, ma'am, what's got to do with you? She said, I'm going to need your resume and I'm going to need your transcript. Well, I said, well, okay then. So I was walking on the track at the moment and I was thinking, I don't know who she is, but I saw her mama from Alabama and I was like, I don't know what her issue is. He's calling me like that. But I said, okay, I'm going to send it. Now did. I went and interviewed and did some other stuff. 2 weeks later, they called me back. We have a job for you. What is your problem? I said, oh, wait a minute, girl, you got a job for me? Like at Nancy? Like a civil servant job for me? She was like, girl, we've been holding this job open for you. There was not another person who qualified for what we have. And see, right then, I had to stop. I was in tears that they had called for me. See, that phone call hit a whole lot differently when you didn't go after it, but when God placed it there for you. Okay? Let me say that one more time. See, phone calls hit differently when something you didn't chase is placed in your hands. You have to understand where that type of blessing comes from. So after my tears were dry, I got in my car, went on over to the Office Depot like she told me, and I started faxing stuff like she said. I sent my transcript over, sent my resume over, and they called back and said, you're going to need to start working 2 weeks. Whew. I said, I no longer live in Alabama, that's not going to work. And my daughter has a track meet that happens within 2 weeks. I'm going to have to come after that. They said, okay, we'll start you there. So we packed up and we went. My very first program was the first hardware program Marshall had done in 30 years. And I was over the welds that was on there. I had become a weld engineer, is what my dissertation was. And so I was going to be over this program. And they allowed you to put your name on it. And I was taking another tall, dark, they get me, y'all. Another tall, dark, handsome young man at that time. And we were allowed to put our names on this hardware that was going to go up in space. See, for me, it was important. Because my dream had been to be in space. And this was going to be my defining moment in life. because I was finally going to get to go to space. So when I was in there, though, I had put my mama's name, my dad's name, my sister's name. I had a brother and another sister. I liked them too, but I had forgot at the moment. So I put my sister's name because she had said, put my name. I put my sister's name, I put the kid's name, I put that dude out big name on there too. And then that launched in December of 2012, and I watched it, and I had never been prouder because my life had gone full circle at that moment. And I realized that nothing that had been placed in my path or placed on my life had changed what the purpose was in my life. That was my first moment of she means business. So it went up, the hardware came down and disintegrated when it hit the atmosphere, and so did that relationship. Burned up too. I did learn, don't be putting nobody else's name on nothing. So at that point, I knew I wanted to come back to Louisiana. So Michoud had always been a part of my life. My uncle was the head janitor at Michoud, and he drove this Jaguar. And I always looked up to him, and I always wanted to be like Cousin Charlie. He was my cousin, not my uncle, but y'all know how we do it. So, and my dad had just corrected me just the other day. He is your cousin. So Cousin Charlie was the head of janitorial service, and that's how I knew about Michoud. I wanted to be a part of Michoud, and God gave it to me. I prayed, I asked, He gave. See, when you're given those things that you ask for, it is your responsibility to project it forward, to make it grand. He expects you to take your gifts and multiply them. I learned that. So now I'm at Michoud. I'm the only African American with a PhD on our civil servant staff. I'm the only African American woman on our civil servant staff. They just hired another African American male just a while back, maybe a year. I think it's been with me a year and a half now. Most people will say I'm Miss Michoud or Miss Nasser because they like to be my face around. And I tell them all the time, I know there are some other well-spoken, articulate black folk y'all put in front of this TV besides me. But they keep saying the television loves me. Them extra pounds they put on me, I do not love. I am currently working on a space launch system, which is the largest rocket in the world. We will go the furthest we've ever gone. It's the most powerful thing smoking at this moment. We will travel along the back side of the moon, right? The dark side of the moon. And NASA said we're going to be the first ones to go back there. I said, you are not going to be the first one, because Lil Wayne and Nicki have already been on the dark side of the moon. There's probably a note back there. Y'all need to bring that note back for me. You don't want to form up like that. The first time I told our administrator that, he was like, who been back there, baby? We're going to Google that one. But that rocket is amazing. Every day I lace up my boots. I am walking into history. I am opening doors. I am kneeling on my knees to let somebody else stand on my shoulders. Yeah. I am standing on someone else's shoulders. And I truly understand that, and I do not take that lightly. The engines I oversee. So when you get to see pictures of the rocket, it's my engines down there that's all me. They be calling me like, your baby's all right, don't worry about it. They is in the rocket now, I can't do nothing with her, you know? But it's my pleasure and my honor to be able to go full circle in my life and to be able to thank God that that was the path that He had opened for me. This is not just about me, though. This is about you as well. They told me some of you have overcome adversity that has been so grand that it should have stopped you, but it did not. There is someone sitting in this room right now who wants to change the path that they are going on, change the career, or change what they are doing, and they are afraid to do it because they feel like it's too late in life. I'm letting you know, I did not get my PhD until I was 39. It is never too late to walk the path that you have been destined for. See, it's important to understand when they say she means business, we need to be prepared and ready for that. My pastor in the back, preached in November about being ready and about Esther. And about the time being now. And I kept saying, Lord, please give me a Bible verse, right? Because I don't know no Bible verses like that. I need my phone and stuff, right? And I said, please give me something. But see, when I left our women's conference in November, I put on the wall in my bathroom, the time is now. I put on my wall that I am the one. Because see, in November, I was in tears, crying to my pastor and Pastor Love, saying, I feel stuck in my place. And in November, the crazy thing was, I was booked in June. But in November, I felt stuck in my place. And I kept saying I felt stuck. And they said to me, maybe you're in a holding pattern. God was holding you. And I would either soar or land. And I haven't landed yet. So as I stood in front of the mirror, I need to get that moment of what it is that I was supposed to be telling you. See, ladies, I'm here to tell you that the time is now. And that all of you need to be ready. You need to be ready for what you are asking for in your life. You know, I'm single. On this dating app, foolishness going on too, y'all. But one of the things was, I said, Lord, if it is that time, I asked for a house. I asked for the house on Sunday. 44 days later, I closed on my dream home on the bayou. I wake up every single morning with the sun rising out of the water. I'm watching that from my bed. I couldn't have asked him for anything more. He gave me a fully furnished home. I was able to fully furnish my children's apartment. When he's asking, you are asking, you have to be prepared. So ladies, I'm asking you, have you done what you needed to do to be ready? If he was to hand you what you have been dreaming about today, do you know what to do with it? Do you know how to multiply it? Do you know how to share your talents? Do you know how to touch the world? Are you ready? Are you prayed up? Are you prepared? Are you ready to walk in your now? Are you ready for your purpose? I know you are. See, that's what you need to understand. You can ask for it, but it goes nowhere if you are not ready.